communist infiltration of the United States Army cost him the support of even his most fervent allies.
It's a little more complex.
You don't have to have everybody looking at you all the time you're talking.
I love the choice of song. The song is about 54.
Yes, I'm the great pretender, pretending that I'm doing well. My need is such, I pretend too much. I'm lonely, but no one can tell.
During his anti-communist crusade, McCarthy ruined the lives of thousands of innocent people. But the man who had claimed the nation's undivided attention was ostracized and all but forgotten when he died of liver failure at the age of 48.
Yeah, liver failure. His liver was something like 7 times the average size of a liver. Yeah, I have no idea why. When you're drinking about 1/5 of whiskey a day on a slow day. And MacArthur, from 50 to 53, did I say MacArthur? Yeah. McCarthy, all he had to do is accuse somebody, and your career is over. Just accuse somebody. And so, let's go ahead then and make sure we get that. So that's why it's going to be called McCarthyism. It doesn't end with him. It's not like all of a sudden everybody realized we've gone too far and this hysteria has got to stop. The Red Scare would continue, and it was incredibly partisan. All it took. You better track your slides. And that's where we get the classic Hitler line works here. You can't read it. It's up here. The great masses of the people will more easily fall victims to a big lie than a small lie. You know, Hitler, same kind of thing. Had that ability to kind of sway people, know how to play on their fears. That's what a demagogue is, plays on their fears. Small lies, people will be like, they might be lying. But if somebody is so audacious to make a big lie, that'll convince people, oh, they would never lie about something so big, so it must be true. And a lot of times people mistake that being audacious for intelligence. All the time. And that's what worked for him. But the big reason why McCarthy became huge is because the timing was right. The fear of the Cold War. What was the first Soviet bomb? What do we call it in the U.S.? Joe 1. Who just fell to the communists? What country? China. Who's the leader of communist China? What was good China?
Taiwan.
Yeah, Taiwan. It's still nationalist China today. Well, even though we don't recognize it as a country today. And other stuff. I was going to say something else, so now it's gone. Oh, and then remember Truman won that big election. The Republicans were mad, and now they got an issue. Why McCarthy worked was the Republicans stood behind it. It was partisan. The Republicans wanted it. He attacked Democrats. Democrats had majority in the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It attacked Democrats. It was partisan. Go get them. And the Democrats never understood a way to attack this, to counterattack. They still haven't. It's a hard one to attack. How do you attack a charge that you're soft on communism?
Why don't they just find something that says that he's like soft on communism?
Oh, so you say, no, I'm a bigger anti-communist than you. I'll prove you're soft on communist.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. Did it work? No. So what happens? That's what a communist would say, wouldn't they? No, that's what. And you're right, they would try to say he's a big, oh yeah, well, I'm just as big anti-communist than you. What happens is, who do people trust? The real anti-communist or someone who's acting like it? The real one. It's hard to work. They never found a way. But McCarthy would fade, and fade fast. when in 1953 there's a Republican president, and he wasn't smart enough to stop his attacks on the executive branch. He kept attacking them. And then he attacked the army with ridiculously doctored photos of showing generals with communists. I mean, literally, you could see the cut marks where they cut a picture out and pasted it on another picture. It was ridiculous. It's somewhere. I gotta find it somewhere. But if you look it up, and the point is this: when he started attacking Republicans, they quit supporting him. When they quit supporting him, he didn't last long. He'd be censured by the Senate in 54 and literally drink himself to death by 57. It's amazing how fast. And you think about it, how partisan and ruthless this kind of politics was. They used him while he worked for them, and then they cut his throat when he was no longer useful. It's pretty remarkable. And so, the Red Scare would continue. It did not end. This perpetual issue about, are you strong against communism? It would go away a little bit in the 70s because of the Vietnam War, and then would come back with a vengeance. And that kind of politics is still there today. It's still around. Now, the arguments are different, but it's still there. There's just an editorial cartoon in the paper about that today, about ISIS recruiting terrorists in the United States, implying that we're doing nothing about it. Which, what? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's not about like communism. No, they just switch it. Remember Truman Doctrine? You just switch the word, it's the same thing. So basically, try to find something that you can say you're weak on and play on people's fears. And so while McCarthyism is going on, that is when everything begins to change again. Now, so we're making this big shift. And so on the halls, or in the White House, a big decision was made. We can't allow another China. And that is when, okay, the National Security Act, I never mentioned this part of it, but they created a body of the most important foreign policy advisors for the president. They called it the National Security Council. Make sense? So, or the NSC. And they would make recommendations that sometimes would become policy, because remember, the president dictates foreign policy. And they did NSA 68. Now, NSA 68 is basically the Truman Doctrine, but it expands it. The United States will stop communism everywhere, but if they have to, use the military. It's implied. It's not like this is different, but wow, what a change. They'll stop communism everywhere, and now this was not made public for a long time, but this is the White House. They're all saying, we have to do this. And then another decision was made. The Soviets exploded their atomic bomb. A number of nuclear scientists were saying, you know, we can make a bigger bomb, a much bigger bomb. It might not have a lot of military use, but it's big. In fact, it's so big it requires a regular fusion atomic bomb to destroy it. I'm sorry, a fusion atomic bomb to destroy it. It takes an atomic bomb to destroy it, to explode it.
Oh, yeah. So I thought you meant to be like city-sized bomb.
It's called the super. Now, most scientists were saying correctly, the bomb will be too big of any military use, and this is only a weapon of terror to destroy the world. Yeah.
Did they fly this bomb, or was it too big to even like?
No. Well, at first it was, but not now.
At the time, like you couldn't even like take the bomb.
Well, they hadn't made it yet. The first one would be about the size of this room, a little bit bigger, but eventually it would be, yeah, you could fly it. Just a bomb.
Flag, ball, and has a fuse coming out.
You ever seen a bomb?
Yeah.
Then it looks like a bomb.
But how is it as big as this one?
No, the first one was just a big room. But it's called the super. Today we have a name for it. It's called the hydrogen bomb. The H bomb, the hydrogen bomb. And basically what it was is this. They didn't have it made yet. It was too big to really use as a military weapon. nobody was really sure how big it could be, or if that, in fact they could stop it. It might get bigger than they think. But Truman said,
Let's do it.
basically, he asked, can the Russians make it? And they said, yeah, if they made the atomic bomb, let's do it. And the arms race took a bigger turn. And the point is this, virtually every major new atomic weapon, what we call weapons of mass destruction, that would fuel the Cold War and the arms race, all except one called MERS, which we don't worry about. But other than that, the US made it first, and the Soviets followed. So the US kept escalating this, and they would make the super, and in 1952 they would explode it. They'd blow up an island called Eniwetok, which is actually kind of 1,500 Marines died to take Eniwetok in 1943. It seems kind of surreal that they blow it up a decade later.
Were all these bombs being exploded on islands super rapid?
Oh, of course. And then they would start exploding them on Nevada.
I know.
So the US make a rocket for Sputnik.
Yeah, Sputnik 57. Sputnik is out.
Confused to be burned. So did Russia still slide?
Actually, this one now the security was better, but they had a pretty good idea. And they were working on it too. They would explode one a year and a half later.
So even if the US hadn't done it, Russia wasn't just responding. They were actually trying to.
We're not sure. We're not sure, but once they heard the US was doing it, that they knew. Then they were going to work. Yeah.
How big was it?
Well, how big? The bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima was 15 kilotons, or 15,000 pounds of TNT. This was 10.8 megatons. Million tons of TNT. Huh? Yeah, we do. We can show it, but I'm not sure about that. Maybe later. Remind me. Yeah, and they called it Mike. It just blew everything up. A bomb this size would destroy New York City. Yeah.
They called the super.
That was the code name of it.
Oh, like Manhattan or Manhattan and all of it.
All of it. All of it. The Soviets would eventually explode their own super, and that would be 20 megatons, the biggest bomb ever exploded. The United States would eventually have 60 megatons, and they never exploded, but we had 60 megaton bombs. A B-52 could carry a modern, the bomb we still use today, but it was actually designed in the late 40s, could carry 160 and 140 megaton nuclear bomb at the same time. Yeah.
Oh, we're just saying
Where did they do theirs? They actually, they're the first one they did in Kazakhstan, which is in part of the Soviet Union, but the really big one, way out here in eastern Siberia.
not like how the communications.
So they massive. They call it the Tsar bomb.
Do these types of bombs to work the ones that?
Yeah, sure. 1 million megatons. Yeah. I mean, a million tons of TNT, and
So I mean, 100 megatons of TNT on this picture you showed us, greater size crack. Is that like
100 times bigger.
Is that like
100 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, not 100,000.
did the Soviets actually make the hydrogen bomb on their own, or did they do the same thing?
Now that's when they did it on their own. But once they had the original one, in fact, the first computer would be made to do the math for the super. The first modern, what we call a computer, because the math was so complex. Because the super, it was just amazing.
So they just made a computer. Just
Well, they had been working on it, but they eventually the military said almost every major technological invention had it. The government funded it. The computer, internet, they all did it. Military. All right, so the arms race got worse and worse. Now they can make smaller hydrogen bombs. Now, and so the warheads on the Minuteman III ICBMs that are in Montana are thermonuclear or hydrogen bomb. They call them thermonuclear. But they made them smaller with more focused explosion, and they are each about 200 kilotons. Each missile has 200 kilotons. Actually, they could carry three and hit 3 different targets, but they only put 1 warhead on them now. So they could easily put 3 back on. The Trident submarine launched ballistic missiles each missile has 12 50 kiloton during the war. So get 12 different targets.
Aren't those the sort where you just have like a round that nobody knows where they are? Like,
Except for people on it. And so the arms race is getting more dangerous. By the end of the decade, both sides could easily destroy the world many times. The US had a huge advantage in nuclear weapons. By the 1960s, it got absolutely ridiculous. And both sides could destroy the world hundreds of times over. And basically, if you said, well, wait a minute, why do we need to destroy the world 100 times? Let's cut back on nuclear weapons down to 10 times destroying the world. Then obviously you're what? Yeah, you're soft on communism, right?
So
I'm not kidding.
Was that any justification at all? Like, oh, well, they could take out this strategic thing and then we wouldn't have enough missiles.
Well, then what happened? That's basically the argument then. Well, basically what happened is then we became a launch on warring country. Because once we realized that they had weapons to take out our weapons, we have to attack them before they attack, or before they hit us. And so that's why everything went on a hair trigger. Kind of like World War I. It came so close. All right. So basically, this is the essence of the Cold War. But then the Cold War heated up. The Korean War. That's what he's called. The Cold War got hot. I just think that's fun.
Why do they call it the conflict?
What?
Like, a lot of people call it the Korean conflict.
Because it was never declared war.
So they're like, we didn't really lose here.
We didn't lose.
Well, no,
You know,
but we didn't win it.
it's trying to play with language. It's a war. And the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. And this one took everybody by shock. But think about it. No way are we going to let another Korea or another China. We're not going to lose. And we just had already had NSC 68. Although also what makes it scary is we're making the super. But the Korean War. After World War II, the US and the Soviet Union, more than anything else, just purely for convenience, divided up the Japanese colony of Korea. It had been their colony since 1894. North, the Russian zone. They literally just put a line. 38th parallel, boom, cut it in half. Right here. Just cut it in half. And the North, when the Soviets left in 49, they left a strong dictator, a guerrilla fighter against the Japanese who was trained in the Soviet Union, a ruthless, totalitarian dictator, but the real deal. He was a fighter. His name was Kim Il-sung. His great-great-grandson is the dictator of Korea today, North Korea today. Huh? Kim Jong-un, yeah. And what? They claim to be communist, but what it really is, it's a totalitarian monarchy, hereditary monarchy. He not only was he the real deal, a fighter, but also the Russians left him with 100 tanks and a relatively modern, well-equipped military. The U.S. left a two-bit dictator, just kind of good luck, and they left him. His name in the South was Sigmund Rhee. No army, no real control. It's a dictator. The U.S. is going to claim it's fighting for democracy, but it was a nasty dictatorship. And it would be a dictatorship in the South of U.S. support until the people of the South would literally revolt against the dictatorship in the 1980s. Really nasty fighting, which is weird because the U.S. had 50,000 troops that are watching this thing erupt. And now they have a democratic republic. But then it was a dictator. But remember, Truman Doctrine. All we care about is that it's anti-communist. And Rhee was not popular. He had spent most of his life outside of Korea, avoiding Japanese, essentially exiled by the Japanese. And so, in 1950, Kim Il-sung, not with Stalin's approval for an invasion, but he went to Stalin, or Stalin basically, said, you can press against, see what you can do in Korea. What did Kim Il-sung decide? I'm just going to unify it on my own. One Korea, here we go. June 50, they attacked. June 1950. And this attack shocked everybody, including Stalin. At this time, now do you remember the Security Council? The Security Council of the UN, the 5 permanent members, the United States would not allow Mao Zedong's government as a permanent member. Would not allow them. And so the Soviet Union was boycotting the Security Council. All right, we won't join it. Well, this will be huge. But this is also proof that Stalin did not really plan or was part of the planning for this invasion of the South. He was taken by surprise, even though he would send aid and advisors to help the North, including pilots. The Soviets had a really good jet plane called the MiG-15, and US fighter planes would realize that, oh, we're fighting Soviet pilots. Kind of a weird little twist. They had better planes for a while there. But this begins the Korean War. And I gotta put this up because I had this map, but it's hard to see. I have other maps. See?
When is the racket?
Someday. My guess is, what do you think? 2020? June 11th, 2020. Yes.
So why did we not want them to take it? Because technically was a non-communist dictatorship.
Who put him in power?
So just because Stalin were in power.
So he's a what?
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. He's a communist. And Truman Doctrine thinking means it's not Kim Il-sung that evaded, it's whom?
Stalin.
It's all Stalin. And so, oops. I just had to put a map up here and I just did this real quick. Can I make this bigger? Would you like me to make it bigger?
It wouldn't help. It's really blurry.
It's not that blurry. That's perfect. It's almost like I drew it myself.
It's not as detailed.
Not as detailed as on my map.
But they've got arrows like that.
You still see it? Oh, wow, so I can draw on it. You impressed, Abby? Yeah, I can tell. I think you're lying. Well, a couple things first about this. Most Americans could not have found Korea on a map.
We still can't.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of them still can't. And it is a really nasty dictatorship. Yes, we're supposedly starting to rearm, but not really. We haven't really done a lot yet. Our army is weak. And so when they attacked, they were totally taken by surprise. North Korean forces swept into the south, took Seoul in a matter of weeks, and advanced south, pushing back the ill-equipped South Korean army, which had no tanks. They didn't have a chance. And they drove further south. As they got here, there's a town here called Taeshan. As they got closer to here, that is when Truman made an arbitrary decision. We can't allow this. Truman Doctrine thinking means this is being directed by Stalin. We can't allow this. Because, and this is what they said all the time, it points like a dagger into the heart of Japan. I don't even know how that applies, but it sounded scary, doesn't it? A dagger. Japan will be next, and we'll have to fight the Japanese again, and soon we'll be defending the shores of Wyoming. Actually, what they said was the shores of California. They said that all the time. Now that's hyperbole beyond comprehension. What's hyperbole? Exaggeration for effect. To scare people. That's demagoguery. And that's what they did. That's a good term, isn't it? Demagoguery means using people's fears. Truman ordered American troops into South Korea. Didn't ask Congress for a declaration of war, just did it. And this is going to set the precedent. Ordered American troops. And at a press conference, he did not want to use the term war because of the combination of not having the declaration of war, and he didn't want it to appear like now we started World War III. And so he didn't really have a name for it. And reporters were kind of pressing him. What are you calling this? And Truman, and finally one reporter said, is it a police action? And Truman said, yes, it's a police action. Like we're going to go arrest the North Koreans. And so it's going to be jokingly called kind of a dark joke. It's just a police action when everybody knew it's a war. And I guess that's kind of explains the question you asked, Jamie, about the conflict.
So is there conflict here? No. Were people more scared of the potential World War III or nuclear war than more of the communists? No, that had been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait.
But they went hand in hand. They went hand in hand.
But if it had somehow been implied that this was like World War III, people might have said, okay, just let them have it.
There was a fear of that. You know, we don't have a poll, but yeah. People are generally afraid, you know, they're starting to realize this might be the end of the world. Well, the first American forces were sent right here. They had no heavy equipment. They were straight from occupation duty in Japan, and they were fat and happy from occupation duty. They were ill-equipped. That duty was pretty easy in Japan. They just assumed we'd show up and North Koreans would run away. What happened to them? They got routed. They got routed and literally ran. By August, the remnants of the U.S. forces and the South Korean forces are right here. And that's all they got. There's a port here called Pusan, so it's called the Pusan Perimeter. I mean, it was chaos. Now, the commanding, first off, a couple things. While this is going on, Truman went to the United Nations. The Security Council, right? They make all the big decisions. And got to the Security Council and said he wants UN support for troops to stop aggression. And it passed. Why did it pass? No Russia. Russia wasn't there to veto it. So this became a UN operation under the UN flag. The commanding general was the hero of World War II, and he was still the military governor of Japan, Douglas MacArthur, who was in his mid-70s by then. No one had the guts to tell him to retire. Early 70s, I'm sorry. And MacArthur, a rabid anti-communist, knew that he's going to get reinforcements. And one more thing, he knew that the North Koreans have overextended themselves. They're out of supplies. Many of their tanks are either destroyed or broken down. They're vulnerable. With reinforcements, Marines, and by the way, they called everybody back. If you're drafted or enlisted in the Army, how long do they have you?
4 years.
8 years. They have you for 8 years. And so all these men who were drafted in 43, 44, and 45, they called them back. They needed men. And so it's just a mad scramble because they needed anybody who was trained. That's how the U.S. Army was kind of just not ready to fight yet. The best example, the most famous, was Ted Williams. You know who Ted Williams was? Probably the greatest hitter in Major League Baseball history. He fought in World War II. He was for the Boston Red Sox. He's the last guy to hit over 400, if you know anything about baseball. It's good. I rarely did that when I played Major League Baseball. I rarely played Major League Baseball. But he was called back, literally in the middle of the season, to be a fighter pilot. He's 6'3", he barely fit in the fighter plane, but he was a Marine fighter pilot. So he lost a lot of his career because of that. That's just an example. A lot of people are called back. But back to this then. All these men coming, what they did is, MacArthur had them attack way up here. That is Seoul. Yes, you're right. Seoul's the capital of South Vietnam. That's in South Vietnam? Which is quite a shock for the Koreans, putting their capital in South Vietnam. Where they attacked was the harbor for Seoul, Incheon. The North Koreans were not ready. MacArthur was told this won't work.
It's too far up the coast. It won't work. It turned out to be MacArthur's greatest invasion ever. His biggest success. They attacked here, took Seoul within a week, and the North Koreans had to literally flee back this way as quickly as they could. It was a crushing victory for UN forces, which were mostly US and South Korea. Yeah.
If North Korea had been able to push all the way and take the entirety of the peninsula, would that have made a difference?
Yes, it would. I don't know how. It's hard, because that's something that didn't happen. But yeah, it would have changed strategies. But they couldn't. They didn't have the strength. And so they fled north. But instead of cutting them off and destroying them, MacArthur invaded north too. Truman should have stopped him, but Truman didn't want to stop him. We're doing good, right? We won. It went from humiliating defeat to victory. But who's right here?
Russia.
China.
Wow.
And what did China? Mao Zedong said, he made it very clear, if you invade North Korea, we consider that an attack on China. MacArthur told Truman, don't worry about it. We'll destroy them. And so, UN forces, but mostly US forces, there were British, Canadian, Luxembourg sent like 12 men. Turkey sent a brigade, were just crazy fighters. They went all the way up to the border of China. Some patrols, South Korean and US patrols, actually crossed into China. In November, they started meeting Chinese forces, but MacArthur ignored it. And then November, it was actually Thanksgiving Day, 1950, 1 million Chinese counterattacked. What year? 1950. And there's something else. The Americans did not realize how bitterly cold Korea is, especially in the north. We assumed it was relatively moderate. It's colder than here, a lot colder than here. So we're talking by November, 30, 40, 50 degrees below zero for a high. And we're totally ill-equipped. Well, the Chinese actually were pretty well equipped. And right here, the army would have its worst defeat since the Battle of the Little Bighorn. A rout. And literally, they ran away all the way back to here. The Marines were almost cut off here, but fortunately, we had a Navy and could get them out. And what did MacArthur do? He's humiliated, absolutely humiliated. And so what did he want to do? Widen the war. MacArthur said, let's drop an atomic bomb on Beijing. Let's drop an atomic bomb on, if we have to, Moscow. Let's drop 20 nuclear bombs here. So we put a cordon of radiation here. Yes. Ask me another time, not right now. Wait. So Truman finally had the guts. What did he do? He fired MacArthur. And who went nuts? Conservative Republicans. You're going to give the world to the communists. Truman would leave office in '52 as the most unpopular president in history up to that time.
Because he didn't want to bomb everyone.
Because he didn't want World War III.
Like 9-foot trees.
Oh, before you leave, let me ask you one question. Who would be? Truman is no. Who would actually be less popular when he left office than Truman? Not Nixon. No, Clinton was very popular. George W. Bush. Clinton's popularity was about 70%. Oh, yeah, National Honor Society meeting, don't you?
Yeah.
Yay!
Can you just turn this and say
No.
that you gave me homework?
All I do is give you stuff. I give and I give, and you're supposed to ask me for something, aren't you?
Oh, bookmark, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Gross one.
My grandpa got a silver star in Korea
Neat, really.
and a purple heart. But I have a question.
Just let me finish this for fictional fact. Let's see, I got this.
Okay, you
I
got
just put
that.
33 and 34, you know what it is? And here's your bookmark. It's the last one. Exciting, huh? Isn't that weird? Well, God, we only got another week and a half left before we start just all out reviewing.
Sweet. Thank you.
You got that
I believe.
one. Oh. You know what?
Where are you in Seattle?
But, you know, exactly.
I don't know. I don't know here for sure. So this we'll worry about here later. But here we're going to be filling in blanks. So filling in blanks of the 80s, 90s, and modern. You know, the things we don't have time to cover completely in class. You should know that. Well, then, but it won't be wrong. But you are clear. That's not complicated.
Well, you know what?
And then we're going to have the final sometime this last week.
Okay.
And then, let me see it. And this week, we will have a couple times we'll talk about it, but we're going to have to do we have a president's quiz and some kind of job.
Okay.
Girls.
Oh. Are we having the
I don't
final?
know. I won't know. I won't know until we get closer. Special topics, we'll be finishing up what we're doing in the Pacific, and then we're going to get through rock and roll. So you're going to have to do a presentation. We're going to have the final probably on Wednesday. Yeah. Because most classes are senior too.
Some teachers told me that juniors have the senior final schedule, and like I was like a substitute, and I was like, no, you're wrong, or else everyone would just have the seniors final schedule.
They don't know. But remind me again about special topics. I'll give you more. You can write on this. Because since we I just made it up for a class. Yeah?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's more questions.
Sure. All right.
So, I was looking over this. Because in my biggest scene, one of the biggest was making a strong piece.
Yeah.
Put my points on it, and the outline brings from I was as you know.
Well, and the thing about that is there's no easy way to do it. I mean, that's just studying and knowing the material. And so you just have to think about anything in that area. Just try to come up with stuff because you have to get facts. And don't worry too much about it. The ranking is great. It just has things so you don't forget facts. And so there's no real easy way to get better values except just practice.
Yeah. Because I didn't even think.
Yeah, so you just need more. Yeah, so I think you have pretty good historical evidence. And now let's look at your thesis. You have pretty good thesis, but you need more here. You need like 2 to 3 sentences. You get a little bit of background, maybe that would be a time to write a little bit about what we're doing, that kind of thing. And that would also give you context. And then what did I put here? Oh yeah, you have a good thesis statement. That is good. The only thing you would need is, instead of looking for intimidation, it was diplomatic. It means the exact same thing. Diplomatic is the intimidation question. And so yeah, that's good.
Oh yeah. So we got to mention.
But then the other thing is this. That's fine. You got a little more in Japan. Japan, the question is unconditional support. So you got to put that in there. But other than that, it's pretty good. Exactly where you're going. Exactly. And so that was good. So the thing about it is just make sure the points are you can so beginning Japan, unconditional surrender. That's your point. Your position is how you agree or disagree. And so, and the best way is yes, you have one. Yes, you come with bombs about to try to get the war of Japan, but also then that would be your position. And I think that's pretty good thesis. Elijah, come over here, I'll give you that stuff. And so just make sure we get the terms they use in the question. But other than that, that's a good thesis. You're going to be fine on that. All righty. Okay, that's all there is. There you go. And there's no easy way for you know this stuff. So don't worry about it. Just don't. If it helps, write it next to the doctor. Write it anywhere.
Takes this. I've got some figures. That one, I didn't do one.
Man, was I need more?
Yeah,
But,
but I felt like this one was good.
oh, what did I say here? Yeah, you didn't, this one you didn't answer the question.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure that's not much. Branson, you know, you actually do. You know, it's pretty cool. Just look at this stuff. But it turns the thing, well, why am I, what do I want to say? I'm just done. That happened. That one doesn't hurt you.
My grandfather was in the 30s.
He was?
Yeah,
Was he Army?
He was Army. He was Army. Yep. He was there the whole time.
So from 50 to 53? Wow. Yeah, got it.
I'll have
And
to
was he infantry or was he infantryman or was he in one? No.
He was infantry. He wasn't in the Marines or anything like that.
Well, no, they all fought the same.
Yeah. I'll ask him how cool it
Yeah, it was cool. Really shocking. Let's see it. Yeah. You got to take that quick. You can write on this because we don't need to do anything. I just need to copy, so that's- No sweat? We're out for lunch.